All right, we are very excited to talk about a new book that's coming out November 15th. It's called Fans Have More Friends, and I think it's a great correlation in the stuff we talk about on this show and kind of the genesis of this show and why we wanted to start it, even though it was kind of organic and by accident. But we're very excited to bring in Ben Valenta and David Sikorjak. Gentlemen, but both authors of the book. I'm very fascinated to read this once it comes out. But first, we just want to thank you guys for taking some time and joining us.
Oh, thanks for having us. We're happy to be here.
Thank you.
Yeah, definitely. All right, well, let's jump right in because, you know, when I was researching the premise of the book, I've always asked myself, you know, when it comes to fans, and as a guy that coached for 9 years and played, and these guys were obviously involved in athletics, we always talk about sports being a great teacher of life. And I think we always think about that from a player's perspective or a coach's perspective. But what I find interesting about what you guys have done is found out from a fan's perspective and really kind of what it means to be a fan. And I look in our society nowadays, and it's so volatile in so many different aspects. You know, sports is the one area that while you can dislike your rival or maybe not like the Lakers, it's kind of like the last haven that brings us together, and it's so important. And I don't know if it's ever been more important than it is right now.
We come from the perspective that, you know, like you, we are players and coaches ourselves. We understand the values, the lessons that are taught by engaging with teams, like being a teammate. We didn't think necessarily that we would arrive at some of these conclusions regarding fandom itself. And I think we all have a hunch as fans that fandom is social. I think all have, you know, intuitively can nod along to the idea that, you know, fandom creates community. We wanted to try and prove that out at scale to understand, is this truly the animating life force driving fandom? And then if so, what are the knock-on effects? And what we find is it is, in fact, the animating life force of fandom, and the knock-on effects are incredibly positive.
Without a doubt. David, your kind of thoughts on everything.
No, I appreciate the distinction you drew from playing sports to being a fan. Right? In our culture, people who are not even fans will put their kids into sports because everyone recognizes that playing sports is good for you. The teamwork, the lessons taught are all great. What we're putting forth there is like being a fan is actually better for you than playing. We're all for playing sports, as Ben said. We're both coaches, but being a fan kind of has benefits that you can take with you all throughout your life. You know, eventually we all stop playing ball to some degree. Catches up with us, and you know, even the greatest have to stop playing. Being a fan is forever.
That's without a doubt. And, you know, some of the numbers in here, some of the takeaways, I know you guys, like you said, Ben, it had to be just fascinating to come to these conclusions. I mean, I'm looking at it. I mean, the more engaged the sports fan, the stronger the family ties. Fans report higher satisfaction with their careers and relationships. And, Ben, you said something. I'm from Auburn, Alabama. That city runs on that university and the fans of that university, whether it's through football, basketball, baseball, and it's what brings everybody together. There's not a whole lot that can bring people together to throw toilet paper on a tree, but it does give you, you know, that sense of purpose. And I find the numbers in here fascinating. What was the one that jumped out to you guys? And they may be different. I'm sure they probably are. What was the number that jumped out the most to each one of you?
For me, it was when we started measuring loneliness. When we started, I think we all recognize, even pre-pandemic, we all recognize that loneliness is a pervasive problem. And I've seen a lot of articles come out lately around loneliness problems that plague teens, middle-aged men. You know, various demographics suffer from this issue. And it's pretty simple to think about the idea that fans have more friends than you'd expect them to have less loneliness, more belonging. But when we actually were able to quantify that and use academic measures of loneliness and then you know, organize that data by their fandom, what we see is a tool. It puts in sharp relief the notion that fandom can be a tool that we can use to actually improve our well-being, improve the quality of our lives, and ultimately lead to you know, a better society.
Yeah, David, how about you?
Yeah, it was when we started pushing the envelope, and really the pandemic. You know, we had nothing to do, so we were exploring areas that we wouldn't normally explore. And what we found was, the bigger fan you are, the more trusting you are of various institutions.
Really?
In our country. We have this kind of declining trust in institutions, and the bigger fan you are, the more confident you are in those institutions. And the really interesting thing there is some of these institutions, take for the police, for instance, are polarized, right? Democrats will have more negative views than Republicans towards the police. But what you see within both groups, the bigger fan you are, the stronger your trust in that institution is. And it works the other way, where things like scientists, professors, news media that are vilified more on the right and are rate higher on the left amongst Republicans. Each one of those institutions, the bigger fan you are, the higher your level of confidence is in those institutions. So that's what it dawned on us. Like, it's actually even bigger. Like, the socializing we all get, but it changes your outlook in a certain way of the world. All this interacting you're doing with people is really good for you, not only in just healthy and you're happier as a person, but you also understand or can connect with different types of people. And that, in a divided country, we felt that's a really important message to get out.
Yeah, and I love how they went below the surface level, David.
Yeah.
I think that's really where the meat is.
No doubt. There's an ancient proverb. It goes something like, me against my brother, me and my brother against our cousin, me, my brother, and our cousin against the stranger. So, like, clearly humans have been banding together to form these allegiances for a long time. And one of the coolest things about this show is when we get fans who write in and say, you guys save sports for me. I had almost given up on sports. I found your show. I love the way that your show is trying to unify and bring people together. What sorts of data did you guys uncover in terms of the direction that sports fandom is headed in America here over the last 15 or 20 years?
Well, I think we touched on it in the open. I mean, I think the idea that this is one of those like last safe spaces where people can connect. I think, some of the data, extrapolating on what Dave was just talking about, if we're more trusting of institutions, we're more trusting of other people, right? Sports is this space where we can come together. We are exposed to different types of different people from different walks of life. And what that does is it broadens our worldview. And I think that it's that ability to impact us at that sort of level, like where we're changing our perspective on how we see the world because of our fandom. Like, that's what turned us from, we were professional operators, like this is our job, but we went from writing a book about the business of sports to becoming advocates and evangelists for the power of sports. And that's where I think we're in lockstep with you guys and sort of see what you guys do and applaud what you guys do, because that's what you're doing every time you guys get together. You're sort of living and breathing this idea, and I think that that's really powerful.
David?
Yeah, the way I think about it is sports right now is better than it ever was in this country. Despite all the controversies we focus on, we have more access to more games. I mean, you guys are, if you're an Auburn fan, I'm assuming you're a college football fan. There's more college football you could watch on Saturday than you. It's not possible. Even if you watch replays, you couldn't get to.
Believe me, I know.
And that's great. And that just gives us more points to connect over, more things to talk about. And in kind of, in the trends in this country with technology, social media, us growing apart, we need this more than ever.
Without a doubt.
The irony here is that sports would seem like another area in society that would divide us. Right? I mean, my mom was born in Columbus, Ohio. I ended up committing to the University of Michigan. That seems like an area where, her family wouldn't really accept me.
Well, she hasn't talked to you since you've
My mother
had.
My mother will talk to me. But no, I mean, seriously, that seems like another area of life that would create division. I mean, Jake's about to get married to a girl who went to Alabama.
Yeah.
Right?
Alabama fan, yeah.
Alabama fan, and my wife is an Alabama fan. And yet, your research is indicating that this is an area that can actually unify us through our differences. What really stood out to you on that front?
Well, exactly. I mean, you touched on it. I mean, Alabama is the perfect example. You're from Auburn, Alabama. I'd imagine some Alabama Crimson Tide fans down there, right?
Half my best friends are Alabama fans. I'd much rather argue with them over the game than watch it with my buddies that are Auburn fans.
Exactly. And Dave's a Yankee fan, right? And I'll let him talk about his Yankee fandom. But anecdotally, the people he wants to talk about baseball with are Red Sox fans, right? Mm-hmm. It's fun, right? This just creates a nuanced, textured way to engage with sports in a different way. And this is like the one space where we can get in and bust each other's balls and have a good time. And no one takes it too seriously. And it's just fun. It's just
you're not going to get canceled for saying that Alabama's offensive line isn't very good.
I don't know. It depends on how mad you make Nick Saban. We'll see how it goes. David, you're a Yankees fan. I'm also a Yankees fan. Well, what'd you think about the end of this year? And I know they re-signed Aaron Judge, but I'm kind of in the dumps with the Yankees right now.
Yeah, they've been trying out the same kind of formula, and the Astros are doing laps around the Yankees, and even the Rays are doing, a third of the payroll. So, it's the decision making is really tough for the Yankees.
Yeah.
The Yankees owe you an apology still.
Yeah, they do owe me an apology. We won't go down that road, down that rabbit hole of just treachery. There's one thing, I'm looking at these numbers here, and 61 Americans report experience loneliness and not fans. Do these numbers get skewed at all when you're just going for an absolute trash
Like the
organization?
Browns, like if you're a Browns
Does it depend
fan?
on the success of your organization? Because usually when we're doing worse, the lonelier I feel. I guess there are some guys you could team up with to be lonely together.
Yeah,
that's
in
the
your
point.
team.
Yeah.
But does the numbers get changed at all depending on the success of the program?
No, it's the same.
Wow.
It's the same.
Wow.
And we've teased this out as much within our data set. We can isolate, what teams you're a fan of, and as best we could of taking Patriots, and I hate to say this, Red Sox fans, and seeing if they were not happier. And looking from big cities to small cities, the line that we use is a fan is a fan is a fan. Your experience of being a sports fan, same as in New York, as it is in Alabama, as it is in Wyoming. You're watching the same games. Yeah, they have the same rules. You react the same way, and you might have good takes, you might have bad takes. It's all the same.
So you would disagree that rooting for Alabama is like rooting for the Soviet Union? It has to be perfect, or you pretend it didn't happen?
That still might be true. That still might be true. But, you
Go
go
ahead.
on this emotional ride. You go on an emotional ride with people, right? You're whether you're an Alabama fan, an Auburn fan, you're on this emotional ride. You celebrate, you commiserate. It's the emotions of the moment. It's the thing to talk about. It's that connection that really matters, and that's where we want to shine a light on. It's about the connection, right?
Yeah,
like it's not about what's happening on the field. It's about what's happening in the stands.
Yeah, well, I think there's such a niche for what you guys found, because I haven't seen this before. You know what I'm saying? This is the first time you have actual numbers where you can look at. I'm very surprised that it's kind of even across the board. My last question before we tell everybody where they can go get this on November 15th, go get it the minute it comes out. These things are going to sell quicker than Girl Scout cookies, and you know how quickly those things go. Thin Mints, I mean, they're Gonzo the Clown. But, when we talk about relationships like within the family, how many memories when your father or your mother's gone or your grandfather's gone, or maybe you met your spouse at the game, just how it can tighten up the bonds that are as tight as you can possibly get. Sports has given so many memories. Like we've talked about putting a book together just of people's memories about, hey, my dad passed away 5 years ago, but every time the Bears played the Lions, I think about us going to Soldier Field. Just how, the family bond and the family union. I know that's another aspect you guys looked at.
Well, we have numbers that would support everything you just said. And so there's data, there's analytics that supports that idea. But I think what I would encourage people to think about is to personalize some of the numbers, and to think about it in those terms where this has been the thing that has galvanized my relationship with my father, my brothers, my friends. It's the thing that we talk about. It's the thing that brings us together. And I think when we think about it in those terms, I saw all three of you guys like nod along at that point, right? Because I think you can all recognize that thing. In the foreword to the book written by a colleague at Fox Sports, he describes a story of being at the Super Bowl, and he's sitting next to these people, and this guy's wearing these big work boots, right? And he's rooting on the Pittsburgh Steelers 6 years ago. And at some point he says, well, it's pretty hot here. You're on your feet all day. Why are you wearing those work boots? And he says, those are actually my dad's work boots. He was a coal miner in Pittsburgh for however many years, worked in the mills, and he was a huge Steeler fan. He passed away a few years ago. I wanted a piece of him to be here. And we all get a little misty-eyed when we think about that, because we can see that in ourselves, in our own lives. And I think as soon as we see our fandom for what it is, it's this engine of social connection. As soon as we see the fantasy league, the bets we lay as really just a way that I can get my phone to light up with text messages, right, and connect with those people. That's when the magic and power of this comes alive. And I think that's really what we want people to understand about their fandom.
Wow. Yeah, it's the ultimate icebreaker when it comes down to it. When you look at sports, it's the ultimate icebreaker. Guys, tell everybody where they can find Fans Have More Friends. Dropping November 15th. Where can our audience and everybody else go get a hold of this?
Fans Have More Friends is available wherever you get your books. So look out for it. Yeah.
Nice.
And you can also visit us to get more information on fanshavemorefriends.com.
Awesome. Well, guys, we really appreciate the work. It's very important what you did. I know y'all are very busy. It's about to drop. I know it's going to be hot. Would love to have you back on at some point to talk some more about this. It's a fascinating subject.